Tracy Harwood. So I've done a little bit of digging around and I've discovered
Ricky Grove. Fog comes in on little cat feet.
Phil Rice. This is the best film that I've seen all year and maybe ever.
Damien Valentine. Use the machinima, Luke.
Hello and welcome to And Now for Something Completely Machinima, the podcast about machinima, virtual production, and related technologies. I am one of your hosts, Phil Rice, and with me is Tracy Harwood, Ricky Grove, and Damien Valentine.
Hey there.
It's good to be back with you guys. I was out last month, as everyone knows, and it's really good to be back. I missed you.
We really missed you too. In fact, there was at one point we all paused in our commentary, which was the place where you would start talking. And we all were going, "No, Phil, where are you?"
Yeah, we definitely missed your perspective for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so this week we are going to be looking way back into the past. This is our own little Wayback Machine here because we have a very old but very memorable machinima piece that Ricky found in the Internet Archive. Ricky, why don't you tell us about it?
Sure will. Now, the archive had a DDS attack for a while, and they had a hard time getting it back up again, but it's up. And their machinima collection, which we had talked extensively a couple episodes about, is probably the best archive of machinima. And I had mentioned that I was going to go through and pull some little candy from that archive. One of the sections of the archive is Warcraft movies. And as I was going through it, I came across a terrific movie. Now I think it's terrific. It's called Kanye's The Internet is for Porn. And I remember when this thing came out in 2005, November 2005. And it's funny how your mood or your particular way of looking at things affects your judgment. Because when I first watched it, I thought it was trite. And although the music was kind of fun, I thought the whole thing was just tasteless and trite. And so I just threw it away. So when I came across it while I was looking through the archive, I said, no, I just better watch that again. And my reaction to it is entirely different. Now, this is 20 years ago now. And I'm a different person than I was. I hope I've grown a little bit, but I don't know why I thought it was trite, because it's not trite at all. It's fun, especially the music. It's a music. I guess you would call it a musical shot inside of World of Warcraft. And well, that's the subject. The internet is for porn. There's a young woman who is saying she really loves the internet to do stuff, and then these sort of rough-voiced counter to her saying, no, it's all for porn. It's for porn, porn, porn. It's a witty and funny short film that over the 10 years from 2005 to 2015, it had almost 10 million views. It was one of the most popular machinima around. And I'll leave it to Tracy to give you all the background. Rather than belaboring all of that and getting corrections from her, I'll just let her do all of the background information.
What are you saying?
Well, no, I mean, that's what you do, so I'll let you do it. But I found it to be just delightful. It brightened up my day. It's the kind of machinima that just makes you happy to watch. It's short. If I had any criticism of it, it would be the version on the Machinima Archive is pretty low res. There's been a remaster of it by Screw Loose on YouTube, in which he's upgraded it to 4K, and it looks much better on there. So we'll provide the link for that, and that's what I think you should watch. I'm glad that the Machinima Archive has it there, but it's not a very high quality version, and that makes it look much better. My only real problem with the film is that the visual editing and the visual style is not as interesting as the actual music and the performances. The animation is somewhat primitive. but I guess that adds to the charm of it. But the editing seems to be a little jerky. I think it could have been more smoothly edited. But this, again, this is 2005, so it's fairly early in the machinima um, cycle. Today, it would probably have better editing because there are better tools. But that was my only criticism of it. But I just loved it. And I very much urge you to head over to the archive, watch this movie, the remastered, which we'll give you the link for, and then check out the archive for the other. If you're a big fan of Warcraft movies, they've got a ton. They've got over 100 there. And there's some really good World of Warcraft movies. And I'm not a fan of that particular style, but boy, this one really hit my funny bone. I just loved it. What did you guys think of it?
Let me go next because there's some comments that I'm going to make which you can pick up on, and I think it might make a little bit more sense, if you like.
Okay.
If that's all right. Okay, so it's actually edited to a song that was written by Jeff Marks and Robert Lopez from the Broadway musical Avenue Q, that features a Muppet parody of the Friends situation comedy based on the everyday lives of these neighbors in New York City. And as I understand it, the WoW creators exploited the game's emoticons to sync Horde performances with that particular song. Now, I must have seen this, but I frankly don't really remember it. I think it's brilliantly well edited, as you said. Well, with some.
No, I said I didn't like the editing.
Well, I liked the editing. I thought it was bang on the music in terms of the music track itself. And as you said, lots and lots of views. It actually sits in the all-time top 20 World of Warcraft machinimas on the Warcraft Movies forum, which, by the way, includes people like Martin Falk, Baron Souston, Mindflame, Nim, and also Olibeth, if you remember Olibeth as well. And as you said, tens of millions of views of it. Literally, I've picked up channels where there's also millions of views of it. So I'd say it far and away exceeds the 10 million that you mentioned. I bet it's as popular as anything all over the web, wherever it is, even right up to today. Now, the film was uploaded to the WoW Movies forum by Canio, who obviously also uploaded it to the How They Got Game archive, which is the internet archive that you picked it from, Ricky. Now, Canio has commented that the video was made by community members on the Argent Dawn role-playing server, which I'll put a link to because that server's still going strong. There's a lot happening in it. I couldn't actually find anything in that, though, that relates to the original creators with their original handles in the community today, though. And I didn't do a way back check on it just to see if they, at what point they sort of dropped out, because I guess the way this was created was probably a little bit of larking around fun by these guys called Evilhoof Flayed back in those early days of the interweb, when, frankly, it was a bit of a Wild West. And I think what this is actually a commentary, a reflective commentary on the state of the art of the technology at the time. In terms of the musical, it exploits this kind of asexual and innocent nature of children's entertainment puppets, which challenge really the kind of political correctness through its various songs by using these Muppet-like, Sesame Street-like characters, but giving them adult concerns and desires. So at face value, this machinima is really very much a parody of society at large. And it's achieved by presenting these World of Warcraft characters, which are themselves products of the internet, as proxy agents who view and gain pleasure from pornographic material, basically in commentary to the behavior of the WoW players at the time. I'd like to say things have changed a bit since then, since this was released. Perhaps a few things have, but I don't really think that that's actually true. However, the other thing to bear in mind within World of Warcraft is that porn PAWN has other connotations. Pawn is an add-on that could help players assess upgrades for their characters. So it wasn't really so much about sex, but a kind of gameplay corruption with a view to enabling players to quickly identify the ranked value of loot and armor that they won as they were playing. So it was a bit of a corruption of the game in that sense. And then there is also another term, PWN. I think sometimes pronounced pawn, but from what I can see, it might also be own, POWN. And that term was apparently first used in Quake 2 days, so 94, 96-ish, in reference to when a player was beaten by the computer or dominated by another player. And among the WoW fans, it's often thought that it came about because of a misspelling, not unlike really the way machinima as a term came about in itself, where the I was inserted instead of an E in the middle of it. With the original term being a derivation of perfectly owned or owned, possibly having been typed on a non-English computer keyboard, or possibly as a typo. There's a few theories out there. Anyway, it's since become part of common language in World of Warcraft, part of what they call the Leet Speak culture, which was a form of language used by the Black Hat hackers to communicate to each other in those very early versions of classic WoW. And ironically, pawn in that sense is a term that's still used today in cybersecurity too, indicating that a computer system has been hacked. So I would say this classic machinima is still very much a double entendre parody of contemporary internet culture, and it's a great pick. I'm guessing you guys have got comments about that pawn stuff, as in not the PORN variety.
What?
Yeah, yeah.
Are you suggesting?
I do remember when PWN, that definition. I remember when that came into fashion, and it was during the Quake 2 days. This is pre-YouTube, of course, but there was someone who had a show with that word in the title. I can't remember what it was, but and yeah, that was the definition of it being dominated within the game. That definition of PWN was what it was widely understood to be, and it has hung on, and I do see it in kind of modern day IT connotations, and yeah, it typically just has something to do with that. I never would have listened to this song or watched this video and thought about that as a double meaning. I don't know if you substitute that notion into the lyric, I don't know if it makes nearly as much sense as the literal commentary, which I've just always thought was a widely held understanding of that, let's say, adult interests seem to generally lead the way on the internet, and it has been since the very, very early days, right? When it was one picture being downloaded, a raster line at a time.
Or Second Life making most of its money from their porn part of
Absolutely.
Right. So anyway, yeah, I didn't have quite as dramatic a different reaction to it as Ricky did, but mine was analogous to that. I didn't find, well, because I remember when this film came out, and it was good for a little chuckle, but it never really that wasn't really the era yet where sharing was a popular thing, I guess. Not for me, maybe because I was older than the norm then or whatever, but it's not one that I would have forwarded around. Like, it's not that level of funny to me, but it was cute, and I just thought it was just an entertaining way to comment on this kind of dark truth about the internet that we all kind of know, and maybe wish it wasn't so, but it is. So, and I had a slightly more appreciation for it seeing it now. I guess I was kind of dismissive of it back then, but I was not particularly impressed with the whole genre, if you can call it that, the whole aesthetic of Warcraft films back then. It never got me. I've never played the game. I've never been interested in playing the game. So, and I think that matters, especially when it was at the peak of its popularity and its heyday. Films made within the game that you play are always going to have kind of a magical extra level of appeal. So I kind of cut myself out of the loop in that regard by just never really getting into Warcraft. But there were films that came about from the platform that did greatly impress me. But interestingly, I think all of those, they would fall into two categories. One of which is films of this type, but with the little bit of added, let's call it, we've been kind of struggling for what's the term for the editing and stuff that Ricky had pointed out. And I'm going to use the term sophistication. I think that this lacks a certain level of sophistication that is maybe more common in popular machinima nowadays, because the tools are more readily available, and also, let's face it, the skill set, the baseline skill set of creators of machinima today is generally higher. I think, not universally, but the overall
agree,
bar,
yeah.
I think, and so our expectation is higher as well. But there were innovators like Baron Suzden, like Olibeth, who still kind of kept to this category of either fun, jokey videos or impressive action videos. To me, that's what I remember about Baron Suzden's stuff most of all, is kind of a wow factor to a combination of he was very gifted, a very gifted cinematographer. I feel like that he knew how to take footage from Warcraft, and then he would enhance it with After Effects and tools like that to really give it an extra wow quality. No pun intended. So that was one category, and it was really only those top tier levels of sophistication that made me turn my head and look. The others all fall in the category of people who transcended somehow the base look of Warcraft. So I'm thinking, and now I'm not going to remember any of the names, but there was a series of films, several of which that we covered back in the Machinaplex days.
Yeah, Jason Choi.
Jason Choi's Edge of Remorse is totally unconventional, the way that he made that film with World of Warcraft assets. It hardly used the game itself at all, if I understand it right. It was more of a beautifully composited views. And so he was able to have a level of control over the look and the focus pulls and all those things that you just couldn't, it was impossible to do in the game. And that caught my eye. There's another, oh man, I wish I could remember the names of these, but
June Falconston, was it? Snacky's Journal.
I would throw that one more in the fun category, not necessarily the transcendent one, but I'm gonna have to come back to you on what those other films were and the filmmakers' names. But all of them did so by, it was never just Warcraft footage. There was extra work done with compositing and gave it like this kind of a fantasy fairy tale type of look.
It did.
It was just some really, really, really gorgeous and evocative results. So anyway, I'm kind of wandering here. I don't mean to, but I think this one has survived long enough past where the Warcraft part of it is what's important, because I think for most people that's not.
Right.
Now it comes down to, is the underlying content funny enough for it to kind of be treated as just a meme, essentially, right? And I think it is. I think that the underlying kind of wink and a nod humor of this is what makes it palatable today. Whereas, any number of films that were really more about World of Warcraft than they were about something outside of it probably don't hold up nearly as well. But this has something that is relatable and funny, and the voices are wonderfully done. There's very much a Sesame Street / Muppets feel. One of the voices sounds either like Fozzie Bear or Animal.
Yeah.
That real gravelly voice. Oh, that's just great.
Yeah.
Really works well for this. So,
And
and especially with,
didn't we make fun of the limited gestures you could do
oh
in
yeah,
World of
absolutely.
Warcraft with the arms going out?
If you look out there, you'll find. I'm sure Ben Grucey still has the pictures as well. But if you could find photos of Ricky and I in New York at the Machinima Film Festival in our leather jackets because it was cold, and yeah, we're mocking all these World of Warcraft poses because it was just kind of funny that that was going on at the same time that the movies was at its height, and the movies also had, people talk about
those
the Sims
weird
having cartoonish animations, but the movies was like,
yeah.
I don't know how to describe them.
I don't know what the hell those were.
Yeah, I don't think they were mocapped. I think they were hand tooled animations. And so there's a little bit of weirdness to them. Now, ultimately, that gave a lot of the movie's work its charm. People who knew how to just lean into that instead of trying to hide it. Ended up faring better in the movies, right? So
it did.
Yeah, and I think the same is true for World of Warcraft. That where World of Warcraft's animations became a problem is if you were trying to do something more realistic and just hoping we wouldn't notice that you can't point, you can only do this, right?
Yeah.
They're hoping we wouldn't notice that.
Straight, yeah.
And that's
Jason Choi in Edge of Remorse did a marvelous job of working around that limitation.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of the tool that he used to extract things and also pose the models, but the effect is just brilliant. I mean, it looks more like it holds up super well today, first of all, but it ends up coming across more like kind of a glossy anime than it does anything out of a video game.
Indeed.
It's wonderful. So anyway, I'm glad you pulled this one up. I hadn't thought about it in a long time, and it was good to revisit it and kind of, that was right in the period of my own kind of second chapter of Machinima. This was released just a few months before I released Male Restroom Etiquette. So it was when I was kind of coming back after a break of several years and getting so excited and inspired by what people were doing, and
right.
So it's very sentimental for me in a weird way. The internet for porn is sentimental to me, but only because of its context, I think.
Yes.
Not its content.
When this film was released, I was going through a rough time, so I did not have the sense of humor to appreciate it. So I do remember watching it and not being particularly impressed by the topic. So watching it again now, I can appreciate it a lot more. I did think it's funny. The internet's for porn. It's one of those internet jokes everyone knows. Like the Nigerian prince is another one. If you're on the internet for any decent amount of time, you're going to be familiar with these certain internet jokes everyone knows about. This video perfectly makes fun of one of those, which is why I feel like you said it lasts. It holds up because it's that. It's not about Warcraft.
Yeah.
It's hard to follow any of what you guys are saying, but something I thought about was this song was written 20 years ago we think about someone could write a song about a game and record it easily now and just put it up on we didn't have really high quality microphones or recording studios or good equipment or software to do all the sound mixing back then. So the fact this song was written and recorded and put together so well, I think that really holds up as well.
It's not, they didn't do that though. It was written for a Broadway musical. It's a recording that they've just put an animation to.
Oh, so they didn't write this?
No. Okay. It's professionally written. It's from the musical Avenue Q.
Oh, okay.
Wait,
So
the song as is?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, I didn't catch that either.
Oh, okay. No, it's definitely something from
I think
the
you
Broadway
did say
musical.
it. I didn't digest that that's what you meant.
I thought, when you said that they'd taken the song but changed the lyrics and recorded it.
No, it's absolutely
That's what I assumed
a recording.
Too. No, okay.
I thought this was like a Weird Owl approach.
No.
Okay.
All right, so just completely disregard the last few minutes of what I said.
We'll edit that out. Yeah.
I'm guessing you haven't seen Avenue Q?
No.
Well, maybe you should.
I think I should now.
I haven't seen it either, to be honest, but I know it's full of those sorts of songs and things. It's kind of like an adult version of the Muppets. That's basically it. So it's really not about the song at all. It's just that they've edited something to that song, which is why I think there's two different ways you can read
Well, now I don't
as
have
a
anything else to
film.
say about the film that hasn't already been said. So
Yeah,
let's just say I enjoyed watching it now. I appreciate it a lot more than I did back when it's released.
It does
'Cause I
kind of
just,
have that meme quality now, doesn't it?
it
It's
does.
it's it's aged well in that way. One other thing that I'd like to mention real quick, and I'm sorry if Damon, if you're not done, but there's an there's an interesting theme regarding sophistication that accidentally, I think, runs through three of the four films that we look at this month, and I'll highlight that in those other episodes as well.
Okay.
But it's something that I've not. It's a really weird coincidence because we do not coordinate our picks at all.
That's right.
Like I
Yeah.
had no idea what Ricky was going to pick or what Damien was going to pick, but there is a common thread that runs through these, and I'll get more into that. It'll be a little more evident, I think, in the other picks. Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Well, if anyone has anyone out there listening, if you've got something to comment on, is this your first experience with this Warcraft? I think we could call it a classic. What do you think? Does it hold up? Does it betray how old all of us on the show are getting that we actually like this? Is this one of those like the history of dance video that was like the second or third video ever on YouTube or something crazy like that? Or does it really hold up? Let us know in the comments. So this week we are going to we're doing kind of a holiday pick this week, and it is Damien's pick. So Damien, why don't you tell us about it?
right. So I thought it's December. Well, it's not when we record this, but it will be when this goes out. It'd be fun to see what kind of Christmas machinima is out there. And there's lots of stuff, very old stuff made with World of Warcraft. And I watched some of that, and there's some good stuff there. And then I found Blizzard had also released the 12 Days of Christmas song, but they made it StarCraft. They just released the song, and so people have made machinima videos with that. But they weren't really inspiring me because it was just shots of the units in the game that matched the lyrics of the song. It didn't really grab me. And then there's lots of Sim stuff, which makes sense, but nothing really grabbed me that either. And then I decided to just write Christmas and then random game names. So I put Red Dead Redemption, and I found this. So I watched it. I thought this made me laugh. It's very old school kind of machinima humor. So it brought a little bit of nostalgia in that regard. But I just laughed, and it's Christmas, but in a way that's very wrong. But I think in some ways, you've got to have a good sense of humor at Christmas, and this this is my Christmas machinima, and I thought this is the one I'm going to pick and share with you guys. So that's my thought process on choosing it. It's not necessarily the best made film ever. It's just the one that entertained me the most when I was looking for Christmas machinima. So that's why I chose it.
Well,
Yeah,
so
I think I'll go ahead and go next. I think part of the charm of this film, and also the thing that makes it fit into a theme that stretches across multiple selections that we've done this month, is that very lack of perfection and sophistication, strangely. And it's entertaining to watch, but it's loaded with flaws, like flaws that, someone looking to craft the perfect short or film would blanch at. But they're the kind of flaws that it's old school, where you just didn't care about that. And so the fact that, the Christmas tree clips through someone's body, or all manner of just little defects and stuff that my inner filmmaker goes, oh, yeah, maybe you should have done another take of that or something. But that's not the spirit in which this was made. It wasn't laziness. It's a loose style that kind of flagrantly ignores the rules, the quote unquote rules of what you're supposed to do for a short film, right? There's got to be this certain coherence to the story, that it needs to kind of fit a mold, and especially a Christmas story. So, it needs to be something that someone might accidentally mistake as, is this based on Dickens? No one's thinking that about this, right? It also doesn't follow any comedic formula either. Like, this isn't the type of thing that would be produced, by Saturday Night Live or one of the sketch comedy places, because it doesn't have a formula and it doesn't have polish and all that. And it's what's so appealing about it, I think, and interesting about it. And it's something, this is a thing that only Machinima can do. Machinima can quite successfully imitate other forms of media to varying degrees of success. And you see a lot of people that kind of strive to do that. I often strive to do that in work that I work on, where I want it to seem like a mock advertisement that you might see on a sketch comedy show, or I want it to emulate, with Obit, I want it to emulate how a short film might be put together if it was at Sundance or something like that. Like, it needs to have that sheen and that everything's got to be as just right as possible and all that. And this just doesn't seem to give a crap about any of that. And it's what I love about it. And only Machinima can do this. Like, you couldn't make a film like, if you factor out the animation part of it, somebody couldn't make a film like this with the quirks it has with an iPhone and their friends. You could make something silly and fun for sure. Plenty of people do that, but there's something, maybe it's just me because I'm so rooted in the video game tradition and the Machinima tradition, that those little rough edges can actually have a charm. And I think part of it is, so when you see those types of flaws in a film and you think, they missed that, or they didn't know how to fix that, that's too bad. Or maybe not even tisking it, maybe just going, well, they're new to this, they'll get better at that. No, that's not what this is at all. This is a flagrant disregard for the rules. Excuse me, bumped the mic there. For the rules, and I love it. I love it for that. I think there was a minor element of that spirit in The Internet is for Porn, which was Ricky's pick for this month, where there's a sense of that was not the target that this era was aiming for at all, is polish and perfection. It was something else. And that's clearly what's going on here. And there's a chaotic element to it that reminds me a little bit of, I don't remember the title of it, but that Red Dead Redemption 2 film that we reviewed a couple years ago, where it's like a dream sequence, a nightmare sequence.
The wacky,
the Wacky Wild West, right?
Yeah.
There's a little bit of an element of that. This kind of freneticness to things, and the voices are all kind of over the top, shouting when they don't need to. And of course, I believe, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe all the voiceovers in this are actual lines of dialogue from the game, just recontextualized.
I was wondering about that.
Every single line is. I recognized a lot of them. So I think that it's almost a remix in a sense. And then, the visuals are just weird, and using some different mods and props and stuff like that are, that are from the world of Red Dead Redemption, but like not in place. It's a little bit, it seems self-aware about its quirkiness in a weird way without ever identifying it on the nose, but the film knows what it is, So, what a unique pick, and what a refreshing one. I'm not cynical really about the holidays. If you've seen my one holiday film, you might think that I am. That was really just me working through anger about a very specific situation many, many years ago. I love the holidays, especially having had kids and stuff. I like this time of year. It's good, but the stories, the cliches and the tropes around Christmas, as I get older, it's just like, man, this is just so tiresome. It's the three wise men, really, it's like, just so something like this that just, again, flagrant disregard for the rules. I love it. So great pick, Damien. A lot of fun, short and sweet. I mean, it's just the perfect little
Yeah.
morsel. It's clearly junk food and delicious.
I completely agree. I love this. You know what? It's a year old pretty much as this episode goes out, but it's gonna be one of those future holiday classics, I do believe. And you know what? For me, it was seemingly in the mold a little bit of also one of my favorite all-time films, which was the National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, which could only ever have starred Chevy Chase. But you know what? John Marston is very like Chevy Chase in this. I think it's definitely in that sort of mad, crazy kind of fun mold. I loved it. What I think uh what I think I particularly liked about it though is that it is yet another attempt to show the dysfunctional people in the Red Dead Redemption world through this kind of slice of life portrayal. And you sit there and you're watching it and you think, well, what could possibly go wrong? And yet pretty much everything can. But you know what? I bet it's actually a lot closer to real life experiences around Christmas than many of us would ever like to admit, which I think is what makes it such a good film. Yeah, the editing is a little wooden and the performances are sort of overly and badly puppeted, but this is exactly the kind of animated stylistic approach that is perfect for the story being told. And who would have thought, for example, that a classic Christmas song, Jingle Bells, could be smashed together with Western music? Who would have thought that? That one horse open sleigh could be a wagon and horse carrying a looted tree. I mean, who would have done that? And who would have thought also that the reference to the kind of craziness of the Clantons, was it Clantons, the hillbillies roadkill diet, would actually really fit this kind of Christmas theme. But it does. I don't know if it's this is true in the US, but certainly here in the UK, I don't know, Damien, if this is your experience, but every single Christmas for as long as I can remember, the power drops here in our house because everyone is cooking their meal at the same time, and dinner seems to take twice the length of time one should expect it to take because the oven doesn't get anywhere near as hot as it should. Food never cooks. I don't know why, it just doesn't cook. And that's I mean, that's just a sort of a truism. And yet, you know, the other side of this is that, and again, who hasn't experienced this? Santa appears to make an appearance in this film, and he's drunk and he's demanding food at the most inappropriate of times. I mean, that is absolutely what happens, isn't it? You get that, you know, that person that drops in your door with stuff just as you're having the most mega argument. I mean, that absolutely happens. I think for sure it's a really great reminder of all things jolly and fun with families at Christmas time. But I suppose what I would say is don't be like the Marstons and kick the dog and kill each other.
And don't steal your Christmas tree if you can.
No, try not to do that either. That's definitely what I would not recommend doing that. But I guess what I would say is sort of embrace the chaotic imperfections of the holiday season in all its forms. And this is a lovely way to do that, I think, by watching this nice machinima. It's a lovely machinima. Thank you, Damien.
Oh, glad you both enjoyed it. Phil, I just wanted to respond to what you're saying about the imperfections in the film. I was thinking as you were saying that if this film did not have the imperfections, it would not work.
Exactly.
No.
Exactly.
Like that bit when he's cutting the tree and the saw's going down rather than across.
Yeah.
That if he'd done it across, it just wouldn't have been funny. But
I would go so far as to say that if any of the elements of production had polish, it would look out of place and probably ruin the film.
Yeah.
Normally it's the opposite, right? Normally it's that, man, they nailed the visuals, they nailed this, and the sound is just not there. And that's what sticks out. In a film like this, it's the lack of polish is the cohesion. It's really, really counterintuitive, but it's true. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
This is definitely one, listeners, that you should plan on bringing out and showing the family as you're gathered for the holidays this year. It's a holiday classic. Yeah, you can watch. This is It's a Wonderful Life. and then this, and you'll be all set. Maybe a little Miracle on 34th Street or something.
Happy Christmas, one and all.
That's right. That's right. Well, let us know what you think in the comments. And if you'd like to drop us an email, it's talk@completelymachinima.com. And my name is Phil
Before
Rice.
we go, I wanted to quickly mention that there is a very interesting new 20th anniversary of Half-Life 2 that's been released. They've updated several things. They've fixed textures, bug fixes. I actually was pulled away from Elden Ring to start playing it again. But the coolest thing is that I was able to jump back into Source Filmmaker, which is just a fantastic tool. The learning curve is a bit high, but it's fascinating. And there's some fairly recent, within this last year, tutorials on them, although the original Valve tutorials are quite good. But the big thing I wanted to mention was that that Source 2 Filmmaker can be accessed. And that's the Source 2 engine. But the downside of it is that Half-Life 2, you can access the Source Filmmaker for free, but Source 2, you have to buy the Alex episode, the VR Alex episode, to be able to get access to Source 2. Source 2 has so many more interesting tools to it. It's got a better look. It's got ambient occlusion, subsurface scattering, all sorts of great tools. The browsing for models and browsing for skyboxes and everything is just terrific. I'm going to do a little write-up on it for our blog. But I'm currently jumping back into that, and it's very exciting. So I just wanted to add that in case you didn't cover it all in the news.
Thank you. That's great. That's really interesting.
So other than that, the Source 2 component you were referring to, Ricky, is everything else something that, like, if I'm a Steam subscriber, I've got the whole Half-Life 2 bundle I bought years ago. So basically having that, if I update it, I'm going to have access to some of that new stuff. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. Okay. Now, they haven't updated the original Source Filmmaker, but they have updated some in the Source SDK, which is what allows you to model and create levels inside of Half-Life. But you do have to pay for Source 2 Filmmaker, which is a higher, more professional level environment for making movies.
I think that's actually a good move that they're doing now. These tools, we've kind of gotten spoiled over the years, I think, to where we just expect that they're going to be given to us for free with the games, right? But the truth is they're not free, and they have a different set of demands, I think, for development than the game does. And it's a different audience, too. And many of those audience would be willing to fork over a little bit to help fund that. So I know that's maybe a weird take, but I think it's a good thing that they're giving users of it the opportunity to vote with their wallet on it, if you will. I think that's actually a positive thing.
I think so too.
Well, that is it for our episode. I am Phil Rice. With me has been Tracy Harwood, Ricky Grove, and Damien Valentine, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.